system no longer serves job seekers. And the redundancy, it's not only frustrating, but it's also a waste of time, and it adds an additional layer of overwhelm to job seekers. And if the scam jobs are even on LinkedIn, I guess they're everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, that was my thought process, is like, listen, at this point, if the ghost jobs are even on LinkedIn, if the scammers can literally post fake jobs on LinkedIn and they're not taking them down on LinkedIn, somehow they're not aware of them on LinkedIn, well, because I really want to go into this in depth about like why it seems like the job market is broken, because I feel like it is. You know, is at this point, getting a job is like hitting the lottery, you know? So according to US Bank, job growth is slower this year, although they are stating that there's 151,000 new jobs that were created just this February of 2025. Now, it states that, you know, from what the professionals are stating, you know, there's a lot of economic uncertainty, even though they like to say that the economic uncertainty is because of, you know, the Trump administration, but it's kind of like, I experienced my first layoff in 2023. There was economic uncertainty back then. Unemployment is supposedly at 4.1%. Rising from 4.0, which is like, you know, okay, a 0.1%, like, all right. And then I saw something else that talked about the weekly unemployment claims dropping, right? So one thing about that I don't like, with these unemployment numbers, because my thing is that based on their statistics, they are only counting people as unemployed who are on unemployment, right? Unemployment is only 6 months long. When I was on unemployment back in 2023, there was no option for an extension, which means that 6 months and that's it. 6 months you get kicked off of unemployment. So based on the statistics that they're showing, they're stating that unemployment claims have dropped, but it's like, are you guys, they're not accounting for the people who have dropped off of unemployment, who literally just no longer are eligible. That doesn't mean that they found a job. When I was laid off in 2023 and I stopped claiming unemployment, it was because I didn't have any more weeks left. That's all it meant. It didn't mean I had found another job. I was literally doing gig work because my unemployment benefits ran out before I could find a new job. Which is why I feel like these unemployment numbers are not accurate. If this is the way that they're calculating it, these unemployment numbers are not accurate at all. Like, unemployment is probably at 10%. Like, honestly, I feel like if they really readjust the numbers based on who is actually working, like, no, I need them to recalculate the numbers where it's like gainfully employed, underemployed, unemployed, like, and underemployed and underemployed, underemployed and unemployed, I feel like should be in one bucket. Because underemployed means that you are not working enough hours and you're not making enough to actually sustain your life. So if that's the case, that person can be considered unemployed. Underemployed people, such as gig workers, they're not making enough to sustain life. So I feel like when we are considering employed and unemployed people, like, because trying to say like, yeah, see, unemployment is low because see, look at all the people who didn't claim this week because they ran out because their benefits were exhausted. It wasn't because they found a job, it's because they don't have any more benefits, they don't have any more weeks to claim. That's why they didn't claim it. So nonetheless, my first point is the application process. The application process is a little bit of a nightmare. I literally just got a job offer today, okay? So I'm going to lead into that. But first, I want to mention the application process for a lot of these jobs are so treacherous. The use of ATSs and AI, I feel like, make it where resumes like aren't being seen. What is that? Oh my gosh, there's a trash bag like blowing around behind me. But I'm sorry, okay. Automation and the filtering of like resumes utilizing AI and ATSs, I feel like I hear recruiters, like I see recruiters on LinkedIn, they talk about how, you know, they're getting resumes in person, they're reviewing resumes, but it's kind of like, are you sure? Because to be honest with you, even when I hear them say that, there's too many people, including myself, who have experienced literally either being ghosted or have experienced, yeah, filling out an application for 10-15 minutes and getting a rejection 2 seconds later. And it's like, so you're gonna tell me that the auto rejection that I got on a Saturday or a Sunday morning was from you, so you checked my resume and sent that auto rejection? Because that's all I'm saying, right? Like when I'm hearing people say like, yeah, you know, like I got an auto rejection on Christmas, y'all won't believe the type of stories that be on LinkedIn, okay? These people are talking about how they got auto rejections on Christmas, on Thanksgiving, and it's like, okay, but the recruiters keep telling us that they are reviewing the resumes themselves and that they are sending rejections themselves. So you guys were working on Thanksgiving and Christmas and Saturdays and Sundays to be rejecting people on a Sunday night at 10 p.m. Is that what you're telling me? I just find it hard to believe, right? And so it's kind of like with that makes the job process so much harder, because we don't even know how these ATSs are filtering resumes. We have no idea what type of filters are on, right? And so I kind of feel like that leads into the difficulty with people applying, because when I'm on LinkedIn, you see all these recruiters talking about pivoting, they're talking about adapting, but all in the same sentence, these ATSs and these AI filters, they are filtering for specific verbiage, for specific skills, for specific requirements that particularly match the job requirement. So it's like, this isn't working. Like, telling people like, okay, well, if you aren't able to get a position in your field, adapt. You can't even really. It seems as though if your work experience doesn't match word for word, you're getting declined. And so I think that's where people started doing the whole like, oh, you know, tailor your resume for every application. But babe, honest to God, I understand the reasoning behind that. However, the way that these companies are going about, where it's like even when they decline you, they don't give you feedback, sometimes I just feel like it's not worth it to tailor every resume to the job. You still may not get an answer. You can tailor it. I've done that. I use ChatGPT to literally create multiple versions of my resume, tailoring in them to every single position. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Yeah, like it didn't matter. It didn't do anything. And I feel like it's only gotten worse, like, because even back in 2020 when I was applying for jobs, and like I was working full time back then, I wasn't really looking for a job, you know what I mean? I was looking for like apprenticeships and stuff for coding, like engineering apprenticeships, and for like associate engineering positions. And again, back then there were a lot more opportunity. That's another thing too that I also wanted to get into, right? Like, so within that application process, it's your experience has to match like down to the wire. It has to match word for word. Another thing too is that there in this job market, there's no room for gaining experience. You have to, like, back in 2020 when I was applying for jobs, it's like, you know how they'll say like, oh, well, if you don't meet all the qualifications, apply anyway. A lot of these jobs, even when they say that today, they don't mean it. You have to have the qualifications. And I don't know what people are doing to get like it. Like, how are y'all doing, the people who are fresh out of school, who don't have any work experience? Because I'm just like, I don't see where there's room for adaptability, for pivoting, or for entry level and like gaining skills jobs. Like, I don't see that anywhere, because it seems as though everything has to be so particular. You need to have done that explicit job, same title, same everything, you know, or you're taking a demotion. Another thing too that I saw was a lot of like website crashes. So there were quite a few instances where I was going on company websites to apply for jobs. I would click the link only to literally be met with a 404 error. And I'm like, how unprofessional. like how unprofessional, because why is there a 404 error on this link to the job application. Like, what does that mean? And that's what I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? But meanwhile, you're advertising this job on LinkedIn. And can I tell you another thing too, is because like I found jobs on LinkedIn, and remember how like I made, guys, because there's like, you know, I live near the airport, so there's planes everywhere. But oh my gosh, but you guys, hold on, because let me show you this plane that's literally far in the sky. Can you see it? How cool is that though? Do you see it? Do you see it? Yeah, that plane must have, yeah, that plane left. That plane is out. So yeah, when I was going on a few websites, yeah, like I found that the website would crash or the link would crash, right? And this would be a link to a job on LinkedIn. So that's why I mentioned too that when you're applying for a job on LinkedIn, that you shouldn't do the easy apply, because on LinkedIn I've literally came across jobs where it gives you the option to easy apply. I go on the company website, I click apply to the job, 404 error. And so that's another thing too, is a lot of these dashboards, a lot of these like these job boards, they might have positions posted that have already been filled. Yeah, they've already been filled. They're possibly closed, the position's on hold, and you don't know because it's actively being advertised as an open position. That makes it harder for job seekers, because all you're doing is wasting their time by having these positions posted, knowing there is no position available, knowing that the position's been closed, knowing that you've already hired for the position. Close the rec, close the tab on this position, because people are in a situation where they're going to be applying for jobs. And honestly, that's another thing too, is that sometimes I feel like they're doing that so that way they can build a roster for later on when they do want to hire, whenever they decide to do that. But it's just like, that doesn't help job seekers in the current time. Like you trying to keep my information on file for 2 to 5 years from now doesn't help me right now, you know what I mean? And so even when I think about that, like, I understand the frustration with this job market, because seriously, what are you guys doing? Like, what is going on? I would love for a recruiter to chime in the comments on what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? Because you have plenty of qualified people in the job market. At this point, I understand people being like, oh yeah, you know, you gotta learn AI. Not every job requires AI though. Like, I understand, but not every job actually requires AI. And to be honest with you, the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, something as simple as learning how to use a chatbot, or learning how to use a software that maybe you're implementing into your company that utilizes AI, it would also just be as simple as training the people who are there. I guarantee that not everybody that you have on your current team is very well versed in AI. Why don't you guys want to invest in training humans? What is that about? Like, why do I feel like humanity has given up on humans, where it's like, meh, we don't want to train entry-level people, meh, we don't want to train you know, junior software engineers anymore, we don't want to train anybody anymore. And it's like, okay, but y'all can train AI bots. You can train an AI chatbot, but you don't want to train me. You know what I mean? Like, you have more patience with an AI chatbot than you do me. Like, that's kind of the thing that I'm thinking about when I say that it's kind of like, you know, we want to be able to like use technology to benefit humanity. And it's kind of like, if you're telling me that AI is making it to where human leaders just don't have the patience to train other humans to grow in their skill set. Another thing too is Workday. I'm sorry, because you know what, the last job that I got, they used Workday, and for some time I was literally boycotting Workday ATSs, where the minute that I would apply for a job and I saw that Workday homepage, I was like, you know what, you do not have to worry about me. You do not have to worry about me, because if there's one thing about it, my resume and my cover letter are so thorough, okay? Like, you know, and I started even creating cover letters for every single position that I was applying to. So it's like, stop wasting people's time, all right? Now it's like there is a wall in a way where it's like you can't even display your talents up front. You don't even know if you're gonna get feedback on it. I came across applications that were asking for like two-way videos, you know what I mean? That's another thing that I don't like. Like, I don't like that, and honestly, I find that to be even like a little creepy. Again, let me know in the comments if you feel the same way. But I've also had job applications that have asked me like, yeah, Ren, record the answers to these questions and send us this video. And it's like, okay, so then what happens after that? So I'm sorry. So I spend however much time recording and re-recording a video, because again, you already know, like, this is not going to be something that's just going to be done right away, right? Like, I'm going to record it, I may not like it, I might have to go ahead and redo it because maybe I wasn't prepared, maybe I don't like the lighting, maybe I don't like, you know, my cadence in my speech, so I'm going to have to keep redoing it and redoing it and redoing it, and it's not in live time, like, and it's kind of like they don't speak to you at all, so you're just recording yourself, and then they get to just sit back in their chair and then just review your videos and decide whether or not you're worthy enough to get, like, it's weird. Like, for me, that I don't even apply to jobs that require that at all, because I find it so weird. Not only that, but I hate having the thought that I could potentially be discriminated against based on what I look like, because they've seen me before I even get to meet them. They're already seeing me, hearing me, they hear how I talk, they see how I look before I even get a chance to speak to somebody. The audacity of you, on top of the fact that these companies will literally send rejections with no feedback. So in an article, it's on robkennedy.com, where he talked about the fact that the system no longer serves job seekers. So basically they talked about the hiring mechanism, right, and how, you know, some of them require candidates to upload their, you know, their CVs. Sometimes you're manually re-entering the same information, and the redundancy, it's not only frustrating, but it's also a waste of time, and it adds an additional layer of overwhelm to job seekers. And there's no concern for job seekers out there that are having to deal with these systems. All they're looking at is on their aspect, and it's kind of like, again, if you guys are getting thousands and thousands of applicants per post, I hear you, I understand, you know, yeah, we can apply, you know, we can't respond to everybody, yeah, but when you consider that there are also a lot of people who have gone through multiple interview processes with companies only to be told that they didn't get the position with no feedback, that is not okay. You know what I mean? That's the thing, that's not okay. Because my thing is that like, even when I was laid off, I had a few instances where literally, like, I thought I was gonna get the job. Like, I was down to, like, you know, hey, we're gonna send you the benefit information, and I'm like, okay. And 2 days, they told me they were gonna call me back tomorrow, never call me back. And then a week later they come and tell me like, oh, well, they have to place the position on hold, you know, it's possibly going to an internal hire. And it's like, okay, cool, I appreciate that feedback, right? Because at least I know what's going on, especially after going through 4 and 5 rounds of interviews with these companies, right? But I had another company that I went through several rounds of interviews and did a take-home project, and they didn't give me any feedback. And it's like, imagine spending your personal time on a home project that you're not getting paid for, because this is free work, right? While you're job seeking. So you're already spending down your savings. And then now they're wasting your time having you work on a project with no guarantee that you're going to get the job at the end, and no feedback on top of that. That is frustrating for job seekers. I'm not going to remember the companies who were super shady during this time, because people will remember. And I'm seeing a lot of, like, you know, this job market is different, you have to network, so now it's not enough to just apply to jobs, you have to network. Can I tell you guys something though that's frustrating with that too? Is, like, I have had instances, right, where you're on LinkedIn and somebody is posting a job and they're like, oh, hey, you know, I have a job open, you know, send me a DM with your resume and I'd be happy to take a look. Meanwhile, contacting certain people is behind a paywall on LinkedIn. And so imagine telling people, networking, you need to be creating a LinkedIn account so that you can network, but meanwhile, you have to have LinkedIn Premium to reach out to certain people. So even still, when you're thinking about networking, unless you're networking in person, unless you're able to go to in-person networking events, networking on, I guess LinkedIn, right? Because LinkedIn is supposed to be like, the corporate king. It's network on LinkedIn to a degree. But once you realize that if you're applying for certain jobs, right, when they tell you to network, where it's like, okay, you're reaching out, right? Because that's something that I tried to do, but I don't pay for LinkedIn Premium, because again, when I was out of work, paying $40 a month to LinkedIn Premium with no guarantee that I was going to find a job was just way too risky, because that's a lot of money. Sorry, $39.99 for an app is a lot of money, okay? A month is a lot of money. And so it's like, no one's gonna pay LinkedIn Premium and pay for that knowing that they're out of work and they're trying to find a job. And the thought process of like, yeah, get LinkedIn Premium, and it's like, there's no guarantee though. There's no guarantee. And the fact that now even like the ability to network on social media or the ability to network on LinkedIn is behind a paywall. So it's like you can apply for the job on LinkedIn, but let's say you see the person who posted the job and you're like, okay, perfect, I'm going to apply, and then I'm going to send them a message like, hey, I'm really interested in this position, but they have LinkedIn Premium, so you can't send them a message. That could potentially cost you the job, because it's like, you'd want to reach out to them, but how are you going to do that? Because you don't have LinkedIn Premium. Not only that, but I also got an advertisement from LinkedIn Premium stating that my profile would be viewed 2.5 times more if I had LinkedIn Premium for services to help them find work, because that's reasonable. That makes a lot of sense. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like that that makes me feel like this whole thing is being done on purpose. And so, ghosting after the interview. So referring back to that Rob Kennedy article, there was another part where he talked about the ghosting after the interview and the psychological toll. And so the article mentioned that 40% of applicants are applying for more jobs than ever and hearing back even less. And to pour salt in the wound, 73% of HR professionals admit that half the applications they receive meet the required criteria for the position. And this is according to the everygirl.com. Like, why a lot of people who are applying don't meet half the criteria? Because they're trying to get back into their roles and they can't get back into their roles, and so they're trying to pivot, but you won't let them pivot because they have to meet all the criteria. That is why this whole thing is broken. Y'all are saying stuff and then doing another. Like, you're saying, like, be adaptable, be willing to pivot. People are willing to pivot. They can't even pivot at this point, because you're telling them to be willing to pivot, but then all in the same breath saying that they're not meeting the criteria. Well, they're not going to meet a lot of the criteria. They may meet the criteria in other ways where they can, again, transfer those skills. I'm really feeling like the corporations are not really valuing transferable skills as much as they were valued a few years ago, because I feel like a few years ago, I did a lot of shuffling around. Like, I, pretty much did a whole type of career change. I used to work in a call center up until 2020 before I transitioned into like technical roles and, working remote and hybrid and all that stuff. So it's just like, back during that time, my transferable skills were enough to help me pivot into a totally different role. You know what I mean? And that was valued because it's like, okay, these skills are transferable. They can be applied to this role, and then she can learn more on top of that. And that's what I did. And so my thing is like, where is the opportunity for that stuff? Because if people can't get directly back into the positions that they once held, they need to pivot. But are you valuing these transferable skills when you're saying that less than half of the people that you're interviewing are meeting the criteria? They're not going to meet the criteria because they're likely going to be coming in with their transferable skills, because the job market is so shit that they cannot get back into their direct role. The direct position that they used to be in, they can no longer get back into it. So where are we at here? You know what I mean? So yeah, it just seems like the employers aren't really valuing like diverse skill sets for roles, and that you really need to be like a total match or overqualified at this point. I'm gonna tell you guys exactly my experience getting my job. I literally just got the call today. Hold on, I need to change my battery. I'll be right back. So yeah, oh my goodness, my bad, y'all. I just dropped the battery, but I needed to change it. So yeah, so as I was saying, right, I literally just got the call today that I've been offered the position that I interviewed for. I had 2 interviews. I had a second interview yesterday. It went really well. We solidified the pay, benefits, pay cycle, hours, all that stuff, right? Can I tell you guys where I found my job? So when I tell you, you know, and at this point, like, I'm really feeling like in this job market, it's like, you know, because that's the thing. I hate hearing people say like, oh, well, it's who you know. It shouldn't be who you know. Everybody needs a job, and like, there's a lot of qualified people out there. It shouldn't be a matter of who you know on whether or not you get a job. Like, everyone should be able to get a job. So I don't like that. Like, I understand that might be how it is, but it doesn't mean that it's right. There's a lot of people that got referrals to companies who didn't get offered the job, and they got a direct referral from a current employee. So even still, the who you know doesn't matter. So what I did when I applied for my job, y'all, I used Craigslist, okay? And so keep in mind, the only reason why, you know, the reason why I went back to Craigslist, because understand, right, if you know about Craigslist, and you know about Craigslist, right? Craigslist is the OG. All right, Craigslist was like Facebook Marketplace before there was a Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist was Indeed before there was an Indeed. You can do anything from selling stuff, and granted, you know, they also have a little back pages area. They also have a little back pages area, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty sure escorts can they can advertise their services on there, but that's neither here nor there, because that's not what I was looking for. But they do have sections, you know, where you can advertise advertise your services. You can sell stuff, so you can meet with people, because again, if you know about Craigslist, then you know how, like, my generation, millennials, we used to sell stuff all the time on Craigslist. You literally be meeting a stranger, like, okay, meet me downtown, and you're literally like, you're emailing each other back and forth on Craigslist, like, okay, cool, so I'm gonna buy the PS3 from you for $150. You're gonna meet me downtown Boston in front of the Dunkin' Donuts, and listen, and we messaging back and forth on Craigslist, you know what I mean? Like, that's how it was back before there was a Facebook, before there was an Indeed, before there was even LinkedIn, okay? And so the reason why I even thought about Craigslist, and I've always kind of looked at Craigslist, but that was like my last type of thought, only because I was like, oh, well, you know, like, these job boards are supposed to be great, right? However, when I realized that there were scam jobs and ghost jobs on LinkedIn, when I realized that I was applying for jobs on LinkedIn where these people would literally, listen, I would apply for jobs on LinkedIn and start getting scam texts immediately getting texts like, oh, and your thing is out of warranty, and you know, hey, you owe for McAfee. And I'm like, I don't even have McAfee. I have a Mac. I don't need McAfee. You know, like, what is this? And it's like, no, the minute that I applied for jobs, they were already sending scam texts. So when I realized that, it's like, you know what? They're over here talking about these job boards like they are, you know, the king of kings. These job boards are also, they're not filtering or even watching for these fake jobs to be posting on LinkedIn, to be posting on Indeed, where they're taking your information and they're harassing you after, they're calling you after, they're texting you nonstop. They're trying to have you text a WhatsApp, right, to talk to somebody about a job, to talk to a recruiter. And it's like, listen, once that started happening to me on LinkedIn, I was like, well, I mean, then yeah, I might as well try Craigslist. If the scam jobs are even on LinkedIn, I guess they're everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, that was my thought process, is like, listen, at this point, if the ghost jobs are even on LinkedIn, if the scammers can literally post fake jobs on LinkedIn and they're not taking them down on LinkedIn, somehow they're not aware of them on LinkedIn, well, I just will just use Craigslist too, because people are so worried about, like, oh, you know, Craigslist, and yeah, like, you know, there's scammers there. There's scammers on LinkedIn too. There's scammers on Indeed too. They're all trying to steal your information. They're everywhere. So at this point, utilize all your resources. So at that point, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I might as well just go ahead and start looking on Craigslist. So yeah, I made a video. I think I went live. I'm not sure if it was a video, but I think it was a live where I talked about applying for jobs on Craigslist. And literally everything that I showed in that video is exactly what I did. I have a cover letter. And a cover letter is basically like, I have a separate cover letter for Craigslist just because I like to always send them emails, and then I'll be like, oh, you know, hey, like my name is so-and-so. I came across your ad for this position, and I'd love to submit my interest. And then right after that sentence, then I will drop my cover letter. My cover letter, it goes through all of my experiences. Basically, I tell my story in my cover letter. I tell them about, you know, working at the state and self-teaching. I tell them about all of my journey, how, you know, I worked at a temp agency as a web content specialist, and then I did this, and then I did this. I also mentioned everything that I've learned in every position that I had, you know, kind of grown into, everything that I took away from every role. And so I utilize my cover letter as like basically a pitch for these roles on Craigslist. And so every job that I saw that looked for the most part legit, and I'm not gonna hold you, some of them don't like have websites you know what I mean? Like some of them may not post a website, some of them may only post a number. The only thing I would probably say is always stay away from the posts that just have a phone number. You'll want to make sure that you only contact the people who have an email available, because yeah, like, you know what I mean? Sorry, like I've never seen a job to just be like, yeah, we just have a phone number, you know what I mean? So yeah, that is a red flag. But other than that, if they have an email available, you send them the email. You let them know that you're submitting your interest for this role, and that you're really interested, and that this is your experience and this is what you can bring to the table. It's a small company, so it's not a big team. There's only about 3 to 4 people there. They are not very technical, right? So initially they advertised the job as an office admin job. However, it's across, literally, when I tell y'all that my new job is legitimately across the street from my house, I don't mean across the street like down the street. No, it's across the street from my house, okay? So although I said I would never go back into office again, because they're across the street, you know what I mean? So when I told them, where they're like, oh, you know, you've been working remote and hybrid mostly, and I was like, yeah, because, you know, I need the flexibility to, you know, be able to pick up my kids, drop them off, get them from the bus stop, things like that. But the fact that they're across the street literally means, yeah, like I literally, again, at the interview told them everything, like, hey, I would have to take a long lunch around 3 o'clock because I got to cross the street, get my kids from the bus stop, drop them off at after school, and then I can literally, yeah, basically come back, go to work, and then cross the street and go home. And so literally that's my new role. And so what I was saying is that they initially advertised it as an office admin position, right? And so I was like, you know what, it's across the street, yeah, why not? I went to their website and I was like, oh, you know, I was looking at their mobile site, and I was like, you know what, yeah, like I think they might need a little bit of help with like updating, you know, the mobile site. And so I see, you know, that they were really looking for someone to come in and help with the website, come in to help with the socials, as well as just operation stuff, right? So I came in, and although they advertised for an office admin, I really came in leading with my technical skills. I came in like, hey, I work as a customer experience associate currently, but prior to that, I worked as a platform support engineer. I'm also currently pursuing my engineering degree, so I have a lot of technical skill. I currently freelance with a startup right now, where I'm helping them build their app, where I'm helping them build their website. So I'm very well versed, and only going to be getting better as far as my technical skill goes. And so in addition to my customer service experience, in addition to, I'm a person that even before I got into tech, I was very operations oriented. So even still, I'm a person where second to technology, I'm operations. And then like technology, operations and technology tied into one. And so when I told them, like, yeah, you know, like I'm an operations person, so I really like to organize workflows. I really like to organize information, right? Which means creating a knowledge base, which means creating documentation, which means organizing spreadsheets, which means organizing all of your data. All of the information that is flowing in and out of your company, we need to be organizing it. And again, because it's a small business, I feel like I can have, you know, so much more of an impact, right? And so they advertised the position as an office admin position. Initially, because of that, they offered it at a lower salary because they thought that it was just going to be someone coming in with just customer service skills. I came in, they offered me exactly what I asked for. That's only because I came in and like sold myself. They weren't even trying to hire for a highly technical person, but I was like, I live across the street, so I can be very highly flexible, and I need the flexibility because of my kids. Totally on board, totally understanding, you know, which I really, really appreciate, because again, that's something important to me. But then on top of the fact that just knowing that it's like, okay, there are possibly other avenues to getting a job in today's market, but it's like you really got to be scrappy, you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, even still, when I think about it, it's like, no, bottom line is like, you have to be really willing to think outside of the box. You need to be comfortable with being able to sell yourself, babe. Like, it's true, because before I got into tech, I can't say that, because I feel like I've always been good with selling myself when the time arises where it's like, all right, pitch me, like I can do it. But I never felt comfortable, so maybe that's what it was. I've never felt comfortable with like selling and bragging on myself. You need to be comfortable with selling and bragging on yourself, you know what I mean? Because I'm feeling like when they talk about networking, we're talking about like, you could be going to a coffee shop and you know what I'm saying, and you're small talking with somebody that's at the coffee shop. Like, you meet a stranger and then they tell you like, oh yeah, like I run a business. Like I'm feeling like even when we're talking about networking in 2025, like that's how you have to go about networking. It's not just social media networking. It's not just like going to conferences and specific events and networking. It's literally like networking in your everyday life, going out, meeting people, having conversations to where it's like, oh my gosh, oh, like that's really interesting, and you know, you just like kind of get to chatting, and then you know, that conversation just happens to come up. Like, you kind of have to start putting yourself out there. Literally, like, I feel like the job market is like dating at this point. Like, you got to put yourself out there. Like, you got to put yourself out there, and not just on socials. You have to put yourself out there, like in person. Go out and start talking to people and start meeting people and start going to the areas where you know that, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, which means if you know that there's a downtown area near you, like if you live close to downtown, if I'm you, I'm going downtown, and sometimes maybe I might go sit at a coffee shop. And I'll go sit at a coffee shop where I know everybody else is a professional there and they're working. Sometimes you might meet just one person there who's really nice, outgoing, and then boom, you gain a new friend. But then all in the meantime, you also gain someone who could potentially help you find a job. You know what I mean? That's the thing. At some point in time, that conversation may or may not come up, and then it's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, you know, we did talk, and like I met this person, and you know, yeah, like she just got laid off, like she has really great experience. Do we have any open roles, like, you know, in the company or anything like that, or within this department? Like, literally, when we're talking about networking, it's something as simple as that. It's something as simple as that. But then also, like, really trying every avenue in terms of your job search. So not just keeping yourself tied to LinkedIn, because honey, if you're just applying for jobs on LinkedIn, I don't know if you're ever gonna find a job. If you're just keeping your job search to Indeed, don't know if you're ever gonna find a job. You have to be using likely multiple job boards, right? So in addition to LinkedIn and Indeed, you probably want to add maybe one or two more job boards that you're searching to, because I feel like that'll give you a better chance, because everybody else and their mama is on LinkedIn and Indeed. And yeah, like, I just feel like you want to just kind of try and do something different. So, you know, see if you could join like a job search community where maybe they're getting the roles directly, and they're able to submit like direct referrals and stuff like that. So yeah, just like a lot of those things with really just thinking outside of the box in terms of how to find a job. Because yeah, like, the job market is broken. It is like, I really do believe that, because it's just like, it shouldn't be this hard to find a job, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like, it has to be broken, because it shouldn't be that hard to find a job. For the very same people who were told, get a job and you'll be okay forever, you'll afford a house, a fence, 2 cars, your spouse don't have to work, you can take 2 vacations, go to Disney. That's what we were told, that we would be able to afford all that and more. They're having a hard time finding jobs. So it's kind of like, it should never be this difficult. So yeah, I mean, you know, I guess, yeah, like, we're gonna play the game, we're gonna play the game. Like, right? I feel like it's the same thing. Like, all right, so we have to play the game. We have to play the game, and we're just gonna play it in, you know, in a different way. So yeah, you know, if you want to try Craigslist, absolutely try it, because like I said, I got my job from there. I sent them an email. She called me the next day, and yeah, we scheduled an interview. We then had a Zoom call for our first interview, went into detail about my resume, went over everything, and then we scheduled a second interview. The second interview was in person in the office. I went into the office, met with everybody, met the team, you know, and it was great. Yeah, it was great. And so it's like, there, you know, there's opportunity on Craigslist too, because I'm proof of it. I'm starting tomorrow. It's absolutely possible to find a job on another job board other than LinkedIn and Indeed. So yeah, you know, do what you need to do, think outside of the box, and let me know in the comments like what other job boards you suggest for people to find jobs outside of LinkedIn and Indeed. I don't know what it is about those platforms, but I just feel like they're so oversaturated, and they're getting more and more like scam and ghost postings, where it's wasting more and more of job seekers' time. So I would love to hear your comments and your thoughts below. I would love to hear some more suggestions on other job boards that people can use to apply for jobs. The difference this time is that I used another job board. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.